Helps people in the long run. And welcome everybody to a rainy, cloudy, usual Wednesday in Ohio on the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. Joining me today are some special guests. I've been really looking forward to having them on for a while. It's Shannon Mulligan and Andrea Hickman from Moms Demand Action. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I know taking your time out of your day with everything else going on is kind of a big thing, especially Wednesday and an afternoon, that type of thing. So I do really appreciate it. So first of all, I just kind of want to start off, tell us a little bit about your organization. Just kind of for everybody who might not be as familiar with what you do, let everybody know what's going on.
Sure. So Moms Demand Action is the largest gun violence prevention movement in the country. We're right now around 10 million supporters. We have chapters in every state, and we have groups here in across Ohio in all the big cities. We're part of the Columbus group. I'm the co-lead of the Columbus group, and Andrea is our local survivor membership lead. It was started by a woman the day after, her name is Shannon Watts, the day after the Sandy Hook shooting, and has just grown exponentially since then. And our focus is, I'd say it's really three things. It's advocating and lobbying for common sense gun legislation, normalizing and pushing back against the narrative, that gun violence and what we live in is normal. It's not. And also uplifting and amplifying survivors' stories. We're a nation of survivors. 59% of the adults that live in this country know somebody or care for somebody that's been affected by gun violence. So we really try to center and focus survivors in our work.
So you're saying it's relatively easy things to accomplish, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So, one of the reasons why you're here now is because this week's a little bit different than other weeks throughout the year. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that part of it? What is this week?
So this week is our 6th annual National Gun Violence Survivors Week. And so during this week, we engage our communities and allow survivors to have their stories heard. And that's pretty much what it is amplifying the voices not only of those that have been killed by gun violence, but those that are left to live after that.
And the reason it's this week or around this time is because this is when the number of gun deaths in our country surpasses the number of gun deaths in peer countries for the whole year. So we've had more gun deaths in the third week of the month of the year, but before anybody else will see that number for an entire year. It's hard to think about it, and it's hard to imagine, but we're in an epidemic of gun violence, and I don't think I'm going to say anything that anybody doesn't know, but to think about it that way, and then also to consider that there's over 200 people are injured by guns every single day. Mm-hmm. And just the economic and emotional impact of just that is something that we should be concerned about, let alone somebody that's killed, which is over 120 people a day here in the United States now are killed by guns every single day.
And so when you talk about the survivor aspect of it, mm-hmm. I think that sometimes gets a little bit lost in it. How people are brave enough to kind of tell their story and be part of that, because for people who have suffered loss, there's people grieve differently. We were kind of talking about that when you first got here. But to take this and, as best as you can, turn some kind of a tragic issue into something that is more of an understanding that this is why we have to do this. This is why I'm speaking, because there's something that should be better than what we're doing right now. Because obviously what we're doing is not working. I can tell you, I think the average teacher, I think the way that they did it, I want to say at one point in time is, you would lose one student every 3 years to some sort of an act of violence or something like that. For me, it was about one every year and a half. And I'd probably say, in the course of my career when I was teaching, I think the number got up to about 5 students that were killed by gun violence. that's one of those things that stays with you. So I can see the people in my mind right now. I know I taught them. We spent more time with them than they probably spent with their families through that. And so it does have an impact with it. And for everybody else, it's okay, well, what can we do to move forward with this? What can we do? So whether it's a survivor or an advocate, thank you for doing it, because it's not easy. I know I make a joke about, that your goals are what they are, but I can imagine sometimes you feel like you would be just as valuable as taking your head and banging against a brick wall at times, just for sometimes how that must feel. Now, for your organizational goals for this year and moving beyond, what are you guys looking to do? Is there a focus area? Is there something that you're going to kind of concentrate on?
Yeah, so for our Columbus group here locally, one of the things we are really focused on and want to improve upon and get some traction is in our veterans community. I'm sure as lots of people know that the suicide rate in veterans is astronomically high. And where we intersect, of course, is we have a program around secure storage. And if a person that's in a suicidal ideation at the moment has access to guns, of course, their chances of actually completing that suicide are dramatically increased, and dying from that suicide are dramatically increased. And so we feel that it's a great way to bridge a gap also to gun owners, because veterans are typically gun owners, and we need everybody in our movement. Some would say that we are anti-gun, and our counters, of course, we're not anti-gun. We're anti-gun violence. We do have gun owners in our movement. We would love to have more, because most gun owners that we talk to and that I know and speak to, they can agree that something more needs to be done. They can agree that there needs to be more conversation around secure storage. If you have a gun, why you should store it securely. They can agree, most of them, that there should be a background check on every gun sale in this country. So 95% of Americans agree that there should be a background check on gun sales. 95%. We can hardly agree on anything in this country, yet we are at such a high rate for that. I know that it's possible to get done, but we have to consistently advocate and work and raise survivors' voices and talk to legislators and just keep pushing towards that goal.
I would like to add to that. In terms of raising survivors' voices, I am a survivor. I have a son who was killed April 17, 2020 by gun violence, and I never thought that it would happen to me. I never thought that I would be in this position of mourning and grieving a child that was killed by gun violence. So as a result, I am asking everyone to use your voice and to get involved as a community before it happens to you. I recall watching the news and seeing various segments, and we think, oh my God, that's so sad. Oh, someone lost a loved one. That's the term that we use. And we have to be more proactive and say, I can do something about this. I can be a part of the solution before it happens to me, or to be proactive so that it doesn't happen to me. So as a survivor, I am just asking people to get involved before it happens.
And it's a tall task. Most people going about their day-to-day lives, that's not something that they think about, because that's just the nature of it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's incredibly important to do. That's what we talk about sometimes, trying to get, our government agencies to think a little bit forward and try and, preempt some things that we know are coming. And for something like this is a conversation that everybody has to be involved in.
Yes.
It cannot just be, a small group. It has to be our municipal leaders. It has to be our state house. It has to be our governor. The thing that's probably the most frustrating for me, and maybe this is because I'm not necessarily on the outside looking in, but it seems at times that where the municipalities are on the outside, is we can't even get to a point where we're able to have the conversation, because it devolves into something that has absolutely nothing to do with what you were just talking about. You talk about 95% this, or these poll numbers that you see that are overwhelming. We're not talking like 60%, which seems to be something that the State House likes to follow, is what the polls say and things like that. We're talking 80+% on a number of what we call common sense items. we can't have those conversations. And if we can't even have the conversations because of things that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're talking about, that has to be frustrating. But kudos to you and everybody that's trying to do something. And I do believe in their quiet moments, they probably are listening more than we realize. It's just a question of whether or not they are encouraged to actually take those convictions down to the floor when it's time to vote on something. That's where the next thing is. But to get encouraged to do that, it's the strength in numbers. I'm always a believer that if the city of Columbus and the city of Reynoldsburg and the city of Whitehall say, hey, we need to do something about whatever, okay, they'll listen, but if it's everybody, if it's every community, then all of a sudden it's not just one or two that can be easily dismissed. Now it's a whole bunch of people, and okay, maybe we don't get everything we want, but we push the needle, we move the needle a little bit closer just to see what happens, and then that becomes the norm, where we're doing some more proactive things. So I'm sure that you're always ready and eager to accept other volunteers to your organization.
Yes.
So if somebody's watching and they think to themselves, you know what, this is something that I might be interested in, what would be the best way about finding out how to, not just to get the T-shirt, because I've seen groups at the State House on a number of cases when I've been down there.
That's right.
But people love T-shirts, and
They
so
do.
How would they go about getting those kind of T-shirts? What would you suggest?
So I think the best way is to download. We have an app like everybody nowadays. It's called the Demand Action app, and it has everything that we have going on at this national level, but also what we have going on here locally in Columbus. When you sign in and download, you put your zip code in, it'll give you all the local things you can do as well. That's the best way to stay informed and get involved and come to a meeting. And I would also say that this is an elections year.
Is it?
It is.
Oh,
I don't know if you
goodness.
were aware, but it's an elections year. Well, we like to say every year is an elections year now, but this is a big one. And one of the things we're really looking forward to, or we're looking for, particularly in our group, is people to get more involved in our elections work. We need somebody to lead our team, and we have a great team here in Columbus, very supportive. Moms is in the name, so I always joke, I go, we got our stuff together, we're very organized, and we have a lot of infrastructure around to help you and support you. So if you're interested at all in elections works, now is a great time to get involved in our movement and help us get more what we call gun sense candidates elected, because as we were talking earlier, Mayor, is that's really what it's going to take to move the needle. We feel the legislative and federal level is it's people that are running for office that either were directly affected by gun violence, or people like me who were not directly affected but feel so passionately about this and get elected. We also like to say too that just because we have moms in our name doesn't mean moms, it's just moms, right? We say mothers and others. If you have a mom, know a mom, love a mom, you're welcome in our movement.
Yeah. That was going to be actually my next question. Is just okay, what about because obviously there are others that can partake and participate in.
Absolutely.
So I figured you're not going to turn down anybody that's coming to your door.
Absolutely not. And Audrey, I think wanted to share about the meeting we have coming up on the 4th.
Oh, please, yes.
Yes. So on February 4th, we have a statewide survivor meeting. It is virtual, so people can visit our app if you want to download the app, or visit the website, sign up to get information, and we will be putting out a host of information, including testimonials, information from change makers to push the movement forward.
Yeah, hearing directly from survivors. I think they're going to have several survivors speak and have them share their story, which I find it's one of the reasons that keeps me going, is hearing the survivor's story and knowing how impactful it is and the support that they feel. And so I recommend coming to that meeting, particularly for this week, and hearing survivor stories, because I think it's very impactful.
Well, I know one of the ways that I got to first meet is you had representation at one of our community events, and so I think that that's just another option too. That if it's a virtual meeting, if it's the app, and it's also at some of these other events that we're going to have once the weather gets a little warmer.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good thing. So the more people are aware of it, the better it is. And like I said, from my recollection is it's not like you had anybody yelling at you when you were there. You probably got some good feedback and things like that. So.
Oh, no. Yeah, we like we say, we table it a lot. We do a lot. That's the other thing, we do lots of tabling. We always need people to stand behind a table. I've been doing this since 2016, and I've done a lot of tables. And I've never had anybody come up and give us a hard time, because they're coming up because they're interested and they want to solve the problem. They want to be part of the movement. Now, I've had people challenge, right? Some people push back on some of the things that we talk about, but it's, in my opinion, always been a productive conversation. But no trolls. Nobody does that. They act like that nonsense on the internet. They don't actually do that.
I usually refer to them as Facebook gangsters.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So I'm going to take just a few minutes just to kind of go through and read the proclamation.
Great.
I know you guys have things to do, so I'm not going to read super fast, but I will read. From the Office of the Mayor, whereas every year more than 43,000 Americans are killed with guns, approximately 76,000 more are shot and wounded, and countless others experience the collective trauma of gun violence. And whereas every year on average 1,702 Ohioans are killed in acts of gun violence, and nearly 3,753 more are shot and wounded. And whereas in advance of early February, when more Americans are killed with guns than are killed in our peer countries in the entire calendar year. And whereas gun violence survivor is anyone who has personally experienced gun violence, whether you have witnessed an act of gun violence, been threatened or wounded with a gun, or had someone you know and care about wounded and killed. Whereas forms of gun violence can include, but are not limited to, gun suicides, gun homicides, domestic violence involving a gun, shootings by law enforcement, mass shootings, and unintended shootings. And whereas 59% of adults in America, including 71% of Black and 60% of Latino Americans, are someone or they care about has experienced gun violence in their lifetime, demonstrating the reach and impact gun violence is in communities across America. Whereas firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens. Whereas people in America and cities across the nation are working to end senseless violence by advocating for common sense gun safety legislation. And whereas by commemorating National Gun Violence Survivors Week on January 22nd through 26th, communities across America will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of those stolen by gun violence. And whereas we renew the commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of those who are a danger to themselves and encourage the responsible gun ownership to help keep communities safe. Now, therefore, I, Joe Begany, Mayor of the City of Reynoldsburg, Ohio, proclaim January 22nd through 26, 2024 as National Gun Violence Survivors Week. So I present this to the two of you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having us.
No, I really appreciate it. And again, for everybody, if you want to get involved in this, you got to go to the app. So with that, so I will let you guys go and get on to your good works for the rest of the day. But thank you for taking some time with us here in Reynoldsburg.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
We'll see you soon.
Enjoy your day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, take your water. We're going to go to a commercial break. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that option. So a lot of things going on. Obviously, I do appreciate them from being there, but I know that they had things that they had to get to. So if you want to hear more about things that are going on in the city, I want to invite you all personally to come to the State of the City. Basically, it's going to be on the theme of partnerships, partnerships that the City of Reynoldsburg has with various groups all the way throughout. Doors open at 6:30 on Thursday, February 15th. You're going to have an opportunity to look at some of our nonprofit organizations that are right here in Reynoldsburg and talk to them about what they do, and I'm sure they may ask you to volunteer. But that'll be there, and the program will begin at 7 o'clock, and as usual, you know me, I love my Q&A session, so there'll probably be an opportunity to ask some questions at the end. But that'll be right here at City Hall on Thursday, February 15th. This past Monday, we had our city council meeting, and it was so terribly long. We were there for about 20 minutes. That's because there just wasn't a lot of legislation. So there are two pieces that are on there that passed, just to kind of let everybody know. One was a Wagner Road legislation has passed, so we're all good to go with that. So the next step, as we are in the process of signing and circulating all the big contracts to get everything together, and then we'll have our preliminary meeting as we kind of get through and talk with the construction crew about everything and bring the utility companies in and bring everybody into a meeting all at one place to have a conversation about how exciting of a project this is going to be. So I'll let you know and keep you updated on that progress. We are also getting a brand new camera for one of our camera trucks. The camera trucks actually, they take the cameras and they actually go underground and they inspect sewer lines and water lines and things like that to see if there's any breakage. Our only current camera is 20 years old, so we wanted to, maybe just get a little bit of an upgrade. But don't worry, we're not getting rid of the old camera. That's going to be our backup camera. So those are a couple things that are going on. Any questions or anything so far?
We did get one in so far.
Okay.
Question is, the Huber Park Creek Restoration Project seems to have come to a standstill with no equipment moving for over a week. Can anything be done to move the orange fencing and get the project completed?
Weather. It's right now we're just in a weather thing. There's only so much you can do when when it's below 0 temperatures and the snow and things like that. But they do plan on having it. I want to say they've got a completion date set for like the first week of February. So it's not much longer. It just is if we can get some break in the weather. That's a good question though. So yesterday I had the opportunity to participate. If you remember last week we had Joe Mazzola on, a couple weeks ago actually, Joe Mazzola. Franklin County Department of Health had a what they call the CHAT Action Team. It's the annual Community Health Action Team event, and what they did is basically they bring together all sorts of different parts of the Franklin County Department of Health and other agencies that kind of contribute to it, and they all get together and they talk about the issues that are facing our communities and our region in general. So they have a number of breakout sections: maternal and child health, we had mental health and suicide prevention, and then we had emergency preparedness, kind of doing a conversation of like the after action of COVID and things like that. So I want to appreciate actually having the opportunity to do that. But what was really cool is what some communities are doing in terms of community health. So obviously there's things in there about suicide prevention, there's issues with drug abuse. There's issues to help some of our aged citizens find ways to make sure that they maintain their properties and things like that. But there are all sorts of opportunities out there, and sometimes I feel that you don't know what you don't know. So I got to spend the entire day listening to about all the different options and resources that are out there that before maybe you don't know watching at home, or maybe we don't know here. So we're definitely going to get more active in this because if residents call and they have questions or concerns about specific topics, now we have an opportunity to actually provide them that information. So kudos to the Franklin County Department of Health for that. It was a lot of fun. But there's one key piece in there that everybody has to kind of understand. It's community health action team. So we actually need community members that wouldn't mind giving a little bit of their time, anything from providing feedback to attending meetings to let people know, hey, what are the concerns of the residents of Reynoldsburg feeling, things like that. So keep an eye out on social media for that as we kind of move through to kind of build that program out. Speaking of involvement, our Reynoldsburg City School District is going to have its next office hours on January 31st. This one will be at the Graham Road Welcome Center. President Angela Abram and board member Amanda Young will be there, and they'll have conversations about whatever it is you want to talk about. So I highly encourage you to get an opportunity to do that. It'll be a lot of fun. We did have some code enforcement updates. Basically, C-Click Fix, now we're going to about the under 25 days before it goes live. And I did get a question from a resident. Neil asked, based on a post that he had seen about the differences between, let's say, Reynoldsburg and Gehenna. Both of us are what we call master meter communities, meaning that we get our water from the City of Columbus and then we pay the City of Columbus for that water. The difference is we do other things on top of that where Gehenna does not. So the added fees that are put in for us are for if there is a water main break, if there is other issues that are going on where our water services actually have to go out and repair it. We have all of those things in-house. So I mentioned the sewer truck or the camera from earlier. So that is actually something that we have. So if there is a break detected, we can get somebody out there. So I don't know if anybody remembers it or if they drove by it, but about 1.5 years ago, over on where the Sheets is on Broad Street, once they had kind of were working on that, the boundary line Sheets, where Sheets is located, is actually the City of Reynoldsburg, but literally the intersection Broad Street, that is actually the City of Columbus. Well, there was a water main break right at that intersection. And so water, imagine from water just turning on a faucet or a fire hydrant, you had tons of water getting pushed out onto the street and things like that. Because that was the City of Columbus, their organization actually had to come out and repair it. And it took about 3 or 4 days for somebody to get out there, to not even had a chance to turn the water off. So that water was flowing for a pretty good amount of time. When an incident like that happens within the Reynoldsburg boundaries, once we know about it, which is usually pretty quick, we have a crew out on site. Usually, I think the most it's been recently is probably about 45 minutes. There were water main breaks when the water was, or when the temperature outside was below 0 the other week, and so you had crews out there working, with water when it's like kind of freezing at the same time. So that's where those additional fees come from. But that was a good question to kind of show the difference between what the city of Reynoldsburg does and what the city of Gahanna does. So that's why those billing cycles are a little bit harder, is because that money goes in to pay for the staff and the equipment and everything that goes in there to fix those particular things. You've probably also seen a little bit of construction going off Lancaster. That is part of our sewer and water line project over basically between French Run and Bryden and that general vicinity. So you're seeing some things out there. So they're out there during this rather warm weather getting that taken care of. So want to get that information out to you. Let's see here. We have our programs for Parks and Rec, as always, the plenty of opportunities. The Euchre League, I think that one's getting pretty full. Cornhole, Bingo Night, the Puzzle Palooza, Tumbling, Safety Town, all of those things are in there. One cool thing that's coming up starting in February is the fused glass. So for those of you that are a little bit more artistic in nature than probably myself, you can head out to the Senior Center, and it's Thursdays from February 1st to February 29th. And I just put that in there because it's not often that you get to say February 29th. From 6:30 to 8:30, and you actually get to work almost kind of fusing in like getting the glass, almost like stained glass type, and the different activities to kind of get the glass fused together and all that. So that's pretty cool. We have some openings left in our various sports. We've got baseball, softball, t-ball, soccer, all of our superhero versions and things like that. So that's pretty good going on. If you're interested in that, check out our Parks and Rec page or look at the Heirloom magazine that you may have gotten earlier in the year. Bryce Park has been advertised. Actually, advertised is going to be starting today. And then we're going to open up the bids for Bryce Park on February 9th right here in City Hall, and we'll figure out what that is. And once we identify who's going to do the work, we'll get all that set up, and the groundbreaking won't be too long after that. So really excited that Bryce Park is moving forward. If you don't know where Bryce Park is going to be, it is actually kind of just catty-corner to where the new library is being constructed right now. So it's a stormwater facility that is actually owned by the city of Columbus, even if it is in Reynoldsburg. But because of a partnership with Columbus, we're actually going to develop that entire area into a nice park. You're going to have some trails, you're going to have some areas to sit down and overlook some of the water and things like that. So we're really looking forward to seeing how that is, how that all turns out. We also have an opening on our planning and zoning board. So if you were interested, these are the people that meet on the first and third Thursdays of the year, and they discuss when people come in and they want to build something, whether it's building houses or whether it's commercial development, things like that. They're the ones that kind of go through and make sure that all the zoning is correct, and they make sure that the building standards are there and kind of get an idea of what those developers are looking to do. So if you're interested in that, please send a letter of interest and a resume to Eric Meyer for the Reynoldsburg Development Director, and you can find his email address online. This is open to anybody who lives in the city of Reynoldsburg. And you don't have to be an expert in any of those particular things. Maybe you just want things to look pretty in Reynoldsburg, and you want to make sure that when something comes in, it looks good. Simple enough there. That's always a good cause to be there. Any questions or anything so far? All right. Well, we've got a couple of things coming up. Again, the weather is going to get warm eventually. So if you or your organization would like to support a Adopt a Road campaign, feel free and let us know. Plenty of roads are still available, most of them as a matter of fact, but if you're interested, you can go ahead and just email Jessica and we'll get you set up. If your organization cleans the road at least 5 times a year, then you can go ahead and get a sign for your group or organization that kind of recognizes your commitment to keeping our community clean. So we really love to see that out there. We also have a couple of cool events coming up. We have our romantic Reynoldsburg VFW night. On February 9th, it's going to be a lot of different things. So here's the menu. We've got shrimp cocktail or bruschetta. You've got a ribeye steak with baked potatoes, salad roll, dessert. There is going to be a cash bar. There'll be some performances there. Everybody is welcome, but tickets must be purchased in advance, and you got to be 21 and over. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check out the Reynoldsburg VFW. It's a great location to have everything. Got a question?
Yeah, we did have one come in. It says, speaking of wanting things to look good, what's the latest with the corner of Main and Taylor?
Main and yes, okay, so Main and Taylor. So we actually have a pre-construction meeting with Sheets on Wednesday of next week. That's just getting finalized, so that particular thing's going to be there. And that's when we're going to talk about not only that intersection where the Sheets itself is going to go, but the remainder of the property in general, because a lot of it's got to get cleaned up. Some of it is looking pretty rough. So we just got to make sure that everybody, whether it's the property owner that owns the property now, or once the construction part starts, when everything switches over to the Sheets organization, who's responsible for cleaning the rest of that up. But that's what we're talking about next Wednesday. But good question.
That's it.
All right. With that, we have our Celebrate USA 250th anniversary. Plans are underway right now. The committee is growing. We have 3 so far. So if you want to join this particular fun thing and talk about it, we are actually already in the process of looking at what we want to do. I know it's only 2024, but the reality is something tells me that if we're going to do something with like flowers that are red or white or perhaps blue, there might be a few more orders in 2026 than usual. So if you are interested in that, learning how to do the grant process, because we're going to go for some grant funding and things like that. We'll be talking about how we're going to probably expand our fireworks campaign that year. All sorts of really cool things that are going to go on. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to my assistant Jessica, who's heading a lot of this stuff up, at jrosenthal@reynoldsburg.gov. She'll be happy to have you in. It's not going to be a huge commitment. There's only going to be a couple of meetings here. Most everything will be done through email, probably, I would assume, until next year, when then we really get everything going. But you only turn 250 years old once, so look forward to that. Also want to give you a heads up, one of the conversations that's out there, we do have a Meet the Candidate night that is coming up. A local organization is putting together. It's going to be February 13th, and it's going to be at the Postal Union Workers Hall on Lancaster. Right now, 3 candidates for the Franklin County side. The state representative is actually going to be, they're going to be there, and they'll be taking questions from community members. And then on top of that, so far 2 of the 3 Franklin County prosecutor candidates will be there as well. So they'll be out there to answer questions from the residents. So when we talk about some of the things that we see in our community, and I know we've seen online, some of the frustrations that we all have with people who are getting arrested for stealing cars, but then are out in 20 minutes, that type of thing. Great opportunity for the community to come out and do that. So go ahead and check social media. I'm sure you'll see some things out there. It's not a city-affiliated organization. I just know of it. But anytime you can have a chance to talk to your elected officials or potential elected officials, it's a good idea. So with that, next week, I'm really excited to bring in a longtime guest. She is a State of Ohio Board of Education member, Michelle Newman. She's going to be here live in audience, and we're going to be talking about how the Department of Education has changed since the state kind of has reorganized everything. And what's interesting is they may actually be moving the Department of Education from downtown Columbus to right where we are, right in Reynoldsburg, at some open office space where the Department of Agriculture is. So we may be seeing more of some of those members out there, but we're really looking forward to it. With that, do you have any other last-second questions?
We did have another one come
Good.
in. Any updates on Lancaster Road electric substation?
Yes, Doug. AEP is still plugging along with it. They're working on the Astor station. The goal is to have the current one shut down by the end of this year. Beyond that, they have not given any very specific timelines, but they want to get everything shifted over and ready for the other side. But yeah, that's still on track, and nothing's changed from there. Good question. All right, with that, again, we'll see you next Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Everybody stay safe, stay very respectful, and as always, please put your shopping carts away. Again, big thank you to the organization Mom Demands Action for coming out today and talking to us. So that's it, everybody. Have fun. We'll see you next week.